Sit down wherever you are and listen to the wind singing in your veins. Feel the love, the longing, the fear in your bones. Open your heart to who you are right now. Not who you would like to be, not the saint that you are striving to become, but the being right here before you, inside you, around you. All of you is holy. You are already more and less than whatever you can know. Breathe out, touch in, let go. I'd like to invite you to join with me now in singing our opening hymn, which is number 76 in the hymnal, the gray hymnal, For Flowers That Bloom About Our Feet, and the words are also printed in your order of service if you are at home. Let us sing. Yay! Good morning again, and welcome to all of you who are here in person with me this morning in the sanctuary, and all of you who are joining us from home or wherever it is you are via Zoom. Whether you are here for the first time or the 10,000th time, we are glad that you are here. My name is Wendy L. I'm currently serving as the interim senior minister, and I have a few announcements to make as we begin our service this morning. Actually, quite a few announcements. I have a lot of announcements this morning. The first is that last night's Music Committee's Oberlin Overtones fundraising concert was a great success. I don't know how many of you were there, but I heard, show of hands, people who were here, awesome. I heard that the music was great. I heard that the audience was happy. And I heard that the event we were able to raise over $500 for First Parish through that event. So thank you to all who made it possible and to all who contributed to the success of the evening. I also wanted to let you know, because Brad reminded me to tell you this, that today is Palm Sunday, and that I'm supposed to remind you that the painting on the glass that holds the pendulum of the clock, which you can't see because it's now not, you can see the painting below, is actually a painting apparently of Jesus walking through Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, Fantastic. That's great. So there you go. It's a beautiful painting. And it is one that is a Palm Sunday tradition to point out here at First Parish. Other announcements. Today's Braiding Sweetgrass book discussion, which is the final one of a series that have been happening through the year, will take place this afternoon at 11:30. After this worship service, there is an option to join in person in the common room or to dial in and participate through Zoom. And you may attend this as you have been able to attend others, whether or not you have read the book or finished reading the book. And they hope, the Earth Connections folks hope that you will be there and be able to be part of the conversation. Also today, after church, the transition team is hosting small group conversations here and on Zoom through Breakout Rooms to have conversation around the heritage moment that Doug Mutter, who's a member of the transition team, is going to be offering at the end of this morning's service. If you can participate in one of those conversations before heading off to the next, you are welcome to do so. We'd love to have you. Also this morning, there is coffee happening outside. If you are here and want to attend a heritage moment, you might want to head out and get some coffee before you then head to a heritage moment conversation or to the braiding sweetgrass conversation. And maybe if it's warm enough and the sun comes out, you'll want to have some of those conversations outside. I want to thank, again, all of the volunteers who have helped to make these coffee hours happen. It's so wonderful to have these opportunities to just gather and be together and have conversation, and it starts to feel like it used to feel a little bit more and more every week. Also want to let you know that I understand that storytelling group is not meeting today at 4, but the women's book group is meeting today at 7. And the short story group is meeting Thursday morning at 9:30, as far as I know. And more information about these groups and other activities that are happening this week in the congregation can be found online on the website and in the parishioner newsletter. Reverend Annie will be leading the annual Good Friday Tenebrae service on Friday, this coming Friday at 7 p.m. here in the sanctuary. And I believe that there is still an opportunity to volunteer to be a reader for that service. So if you would like to do that, please let Annie know as soon as you can. And next week is Easter Sunday, and there will be 2 services next week. There will be a 9 o'clock service here in the sanctuary and on Zoom with the adult choirs singing, and I will be sharing a reflection. There will be an 11 o'clock service where the youth choirs will be singing, and Lisa Maria will be sharing a story and a reflection. And at noon, there will be what I understand is the traditional Easter egg hunt out on the common. We are very much hoping that numbers will stay low for COVID and we won't have to change the capacity in the sanctuary, but that may be a hope against all hope. If the sanctuary capacity has to change, we will again be on Zoom. The outsides, the second service, the 11 o'clock service, hopefully will be able to, weather permitting, be held outside. I still, no matter what happens, invite you to come and to share the news that it's happening and to bring your friends and family and share in the good time. I think that might be all of the announcements that I have for this morning. And so I'd like to invite you to join me now in saying together our Unison Affirmation. Whether you are here in the sanctuary or at home on Zoom, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and say together these words in English first and then in Spanish. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, and this is our great covenant. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. Please be seated. Thank you, Sandy. I want to share this morning a brief story. This is a wisdom tale from India, And it's been told in many ways by many people over many, many centuries. And this story is called today, The Cracked Pot. A water bearer in India had two large pots, each hung on the end of a pole, which he carried across his neck. One of the pots was perfectly made and never leaked. The other pot had a crack in it, and by the time the water bearer reached the master's house, it had leaked much of its water and was only half full. For a full 2 years, this went on every day, with the bearer delivering only 1.5 pots of water rather than 2. Of course, the perfect pot was proud of its accomplishments, but the poor cracked pot was ashamed of its own imperfection and miserable that it was able to do only half of what it had been created to do. After 2 years of what it perceived to be bitter failure, it spoke to the water bearer one day by the stream. It said, "I am ashamed of myself. I want to apologize to you." "Why?" said the water bearer. "What are you ashamed of?" "I have been able for these past 2 years to deliver only half of my load because this crack in my side causes water to leak all the way to your master's house. Because of my flaws, my brokenness, you have to do all this work, and you don't get the full value for your efforts," the pot said. The water bearer felt sorry for the old cracked pot, and in his compassion he said, "As we return to the master's house, I want you to notice the beautiful flowers along the way." Indeed, as they went up the hill, the old cracked pot took notice of the sun warming beautiful wildflowers along the side of the path, and this cheered it some. But at the end of the trail, it still felt bad because it had leaked half of its load, and so again, the pot apologized for its failure. The bearer said to the pot, "Did you notice that there were flowers only on your side of the path, but not on the other pot's side? That's because I have always known about your brokenness, and I took advantage of it. I planted flower seeds on your side of the path, and every day as we walked from the stream to the master's house, you have watered them. For 2 years, I have been able to pick these beautiful flowers and decorate my master's table. Without you being just the way you are in all your brokenness, he would not have this beauty to gaze upon each evening." Each of us has our own unique flaws. We are all cracked pots. But in the great economy of the interdependent universe, nothing goes to waste. Don't be afraid of your flaws and imperfections. Acknowledge them, and you too can be the cause, the sustainer of great beauty. Know that in your weakness, you can find strength. That is our story. That is our truth to contemplate today. We may worry about what it is that we have to offer. We may worry that it is not enough. But the truth is we all have something to give and something for which to be grateful. Something, some way of adding beauty to First Parish and to make this congregation a strong and nourishing presence in our lives and in the lives of those around us in community. We are currently here at First Parish in the midst of our annual fellowship, our annual stewardship campaign. So far, you have been asked to make a pledge to support the work of this church for the next year. You will be receiving reminders, I know. We also have the opportunity this morning, as we do each week, to make a weekly contribution to the life of this church. And so, If you are online, there will be instructions about how you can donate online. If you would like to donate via text, whether you are online or here in the sanctuary, you are invited to use our new One Church text portal, simply texting the word give with a dollar amount to 833-781-7415. That's 833-781-7415. And you will be prompted the first time you do this for a name and address and credit card information via a web link. If you want to give by old-fashioned cash or check, you are welcome to do that as the ushers come around to gratefully receive your offering. At this time, let us take up an offering for the work of this church and for the continuing work of this church in the community, and let it be gratefully received. So you may remember, if you were here last week, that in her sermon, Annie mentioned that this month we are working with the theme of awakening. And so I want to begin my sermon this morning with a word about the Buddha, whose title, the Buddha, simply means I am awake, or one who is awake. The man we call the Buddha was an historical figure, but it is not precisely known when he was born. His birthday is celebrated at different times of the year in different countries and traditions of Buddhism. However, in Japan, the birth of the Buddha is celebrated on April 8th, which was Friday. One story related to his birth is that 25 centuries ago or so, there was a king who ruled somewhere near the Himalayan mountains. And one day his wife, the queen, fell asleep and she had a dream. She dreamed that 4 angels picked her up and carried her to a mountaintop. And there, when she was set down, she met a white bull elephant who bared a white lotus flower in his trunk. And the elephant approached the queen and circled around her 3 times, and then struck her or brushed her with his trunk on the right cheek and disappeared into her. Dreams are like that. It was a mystery to her, but she woke up and she told her husband about the dream, and he was perplexed. So he summoned a council of wise priests or Brahmins to come and interpret the dream, and they said that this is what the dream meant. The queen would give birth to a son. If the son stayed in his palace as he grew up, never going outside of its walls, he would become a great and mighty ruler. If, however, he left the household, he would become a great spiritual leader instead. It was with that knowledge that the queen eventually did give birth to her son. And his father, being a powerful king, wanted his son to be a ruler. And so he did everything that he could to keep his son from going outside of the walls of the palace as he grew. But the prince did go out eventually, and he did see there all manner of suffering. He saw poverty, and he saw illness, and he saw aging, and he saw death. And he was so moved by all the suffering that he saw that sure enough, as prophesied, he left his royal life behind and went on to learn about the nature of suffering and the causes of suffering and how to alleviate suffering. To make a longer story short and to vastly oversimplify Buddhist teaching, the Buddha realized through years of learning from others and through meditation on his own that suffering was caused by clinging to material things, yes, but also by clinging to imagined things, by clinging to the past and by grasping for the future and by trying to avoid change, which is, of course, inevitable. To alleviate suffering, he taught what has become known as the Eightfold Path. This path includes right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, also right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. In other words, he taught that if we could learn how the world works, learn how to conduct ourselves accordingly and ethically and skillfully, and learn to be present in this very moment, then we could free ourselves from suffering. One of the wonderful things about being a Unitarian Universalist is that we can each learn from the wisdom of many traditions, and I have found myself returning to the wisdom of the Buddha over and over again for the last 35 years or so, particularly when I feel most attuned to suffering, to my own suffering, to the suffering of those around me, and to the suffering of the larger world. And so it may not come as any surprise that I have been lately thinking a lot about Buddhism. Not only thinking about it, but reading Buddhist teachings, and most importantly, trying to make time in my life each week, and if possible each day, to return to my own practice of sitting meditation. Given the state of the world right now, and our collective anxiety about it, given the pandemic, the variants, the waves, the uncertainty, the overload of information, the not knowing what to believe from week to week, is it any surprise that I would return to sitting? Given all the decisions that we have to make each day, using the best advice we think we have on any given day, given the anxiety and the exhaustion that come from having to navigate all of that over and over again for ourselves and for our families and for our community. Given all of that, I find that returning to the teachings of the Buddha, particularly his teachings about right understanding and right thought and right speech and right mindfulness, is of great help to me. And as I've tried to return again and again through my practice to this very moment, I've also tried to focus my attention on my breath, on what is, not on what was, not on what will come to be, but on this very moment. And I have found in that practice some measure of relief from the suffering that comes with both thinking about, with sadness or regret, the past, and from thinking about, with both worry and anxiety, the future. And it is a practice that I commend to you, if it's not already one that you have in your spiritual toolbox. Not the only one, not the only practice that helps me, but one that has helped me vastly for many years. Now, when I'm not meditating, which is frankly most of the time, let's be honest, when I'm not meditating, when I'm doing all the other things that one has to do throughout the course of the day and the week, I am prone to thinking a lot. I'm very typical as a Unitarian Universalist in that way, I think. And when I am working, that is, when I am doing ministry, I tend to think a lot about my work. And one of the things that I find myself thinking a lot about, wondering about, really is the individual and collective suffering that arises here in this congregation. The suffering that sometimes comes with looking back to what once was, with grief and regret that it is no more, and the suffering that comes with looking ahead to the future with great anxiety and worry about how to get there from where we are now. We have been spending some time this year looking back. That is part of the work that congregations are encouraged to do during this interim time, and that is the work that the transition team has been facilitating through periodic heritage moments and conversation around those heritage moments. And as I mentioned earlier, we have another heritage moment for you today later in the service. Now, I know that I said I was going to focus on the present moment with you, and we will return to it. That is the practice, to keep returning and returning and returning to the present moment. But I do want to talk with you a little bit about the past, because that is one of my roles as your interim minister. This past week in my monthly report to the parish board, I shared some data about the past. In particular, I shared some data about the past 10 years of weekly worship attendance. I know that there has been anxiety amongst many of you during this pandemic about not seeing the same people, about losing momentum, about the possibility that the people who once came will not come back. And I want you to hear again and again and again that you are not the only congregation that is worried about these things. We all are. Every congregation I know is worried about the same. But I also wanted to look back at the attendance numbers from before the pandemic to see what there might be to see. And what I saw in some is that your weekly attendance numbers in worship have been trending down for almost 10 years. This may not be a surprise to you, but maybe it is. You hit a high point back in 2011, 2012. You had 2 services at the time. You hit a high point back then, and then the average attendance in 2012 was about 180 people per Sunday morning. And then the numbers started dropping. And they continued to drop until 2019, which was the last year before the pandemic started, when your average of Sunday morning attendance worship was closer to 130, 180, 130. Our average attendance during the last 5 or 6 or 7 weeks here, by the way, during the pandemic, adding up the people who are here and those of you who are on Zoom, has been roughly about 100 people per Sunday. So by comparison, you actually had a bigger drop between 2013 and 2019 than you did between 2019 and 2022. I just want to say a couple of things about that. My job is not so much to make meaning of it as to reflect it back to you and invite you to make meaning. But I do want to say a couple of things. First, I want to say that the vast majority of churches in this country would kill to have that many people in worship on a Sunday morning. And second, I want to say that the old rule of thumb is that a healthy, stable church, neither growing nor declining, one would expect to see an average attendance that is roughly about half of the total membership number. So back in 2013, when you had an average attendance of 180, and you had about 381 members, you were very close to that threshold. Back in 2019, when you had 401 members, but only about 130 attending Sunday, that was clearly not the case. And so I just put it out to you. I put it out as data, I reflect it back to you, and I wonder, and invite you to wonder, what's going on? During that same period that your membership number was going up, your average worship attendance was going down. And we've talked before about the challenges that you faced as a congregation for many, many years around volunteer engagement and recruitment, and I think this may just be another piece of the puzzle. Now, I'm sharing this with you not to add to your anxiety, and I hope that it doesn't, but it's my job to share with you, to invite you to look honestly at yourselves, at who you were, at who you are, and to think about who you want to become. I'm sharing this with you because I know a lot of us have anxiety about what this pandemic has done to our communities and about how the future will unfold as we move into it. I want to introduce you to the idea that in some ways the pandemic appears to have been an accelerator for this and many other congregations of a decline that was already happening, and not the only cause of it. There certainly is a need to deal with pandemic-related issues and to figure out how to get back to the pre-pandemic place. But if you were hoping to return to the heyday, to the bustling full church on Sunday morning, to attendance numbers that more accurately reflect a church of your size, that there is more work to be done. That is all. It's not bad, nothing to be ashamed about, it just is. The other thing I shared with the board this week was an essay by Carrie Newhoff, who is a church consultant. And the essay was called "The Top 8 Reasons Most Churches Never Break the 200 Attendance Mark." I shared it for some perspective. It's really important, again, to remember that 85% of Protestant churches in North America never do break the 200 weekly attendance mark. And the other reason that I shared it is that there are implications, I think, for your ministerial search. What kind of a minister do you want? What kind of a minister do you need? And are these the same or different? That's like a Japanese Zen koan. The answers will depend on what kind of a church you want to be. Do you want to return to the heyday, the hustle and the bustle of 2012? If so, what will you need to do as a congregation to get there? What will you need to embrace more of, and what will you need to let go of? These are the kinds of questions that keep church leaders and church members and ministers up at night, filled with longing for the past and anxiety about the future. And they're the kinds of questions that are hard to have real conversations about in the present, during a pandemic, when we are struggling even to gather en masse. Anyway, here's the thing that we keep wanting to come back to. Here's the present Buddhist wisdom. We are in control of almost nothing. We are in control of so little about the future. The pandemic situation is unprecedented in our lifetimes. We can't control the next wave or its variants. We can't control the diverse levels of risk tolerance here among our members and our friends. I had a conversation this week with someone, and we talked about how we can't expect people to make decisions about re-engagement or getting together in person, and about guidelines based purely on reason and science and rationality because of the way we've been affected emotionally by this pandemic. The toll that it has taken on us and the collective and the individual trauma that we've experienced because of it. We can't make rational decisions right now about our safety, not alone. We can try, we can aim for it, but we always are going to have an emotional layer to the decision making. I also had another conversation this week with someone who said, though she didn't understand it entirely, she's noticed that since the pandemic started, she's been finding herself turning inward, and she's found it more and more challenging to engage the outside, to engage this community, not because she doesn't love it, she does, but that is part of her present reality. And I think that's happened to a lot of us. Many of us have turned inward during this time. We have had to reevaluate our priorities and reconfigure our lives. We have had to establish new habits and routines. We have healing to do, individually and collectively. And we don't have control over the speed of our own or anyone else's healing. I think we need each other more than ever right now, but I also think it's going to take time and persistent effort to reknit the fabric of this community. I had a third conversation with someone this week who said very hopefully and optimistically, and I think realistically, that we probably just need to keep providing opportunities for people to gather. And we just need to keep inviting people back. And I thought that was very wise. And that is what we have been trying to do. I want to make another plug here this morning for next Sunday's Easter services at 9 and 11, and for the Easter egg hunt on the Common. I want to make a plug for the all-church picnic that's being planned for May 15th on Sunday after the service. Please mark that on your calendars. I want to make another plug for the fire pit circles that Carla Bradford has offered to arrange, and I want to encourage you to sign up for one. And I want to make a plug, too, for the post-worship outdoor fellowship time that has begun to happen each Sunday when the weather is permitting. All of these are opportunities to come back, to be together in person, to reconnect with old friends, to eat and drink and laugh together, all of which are opportunities to begin to reknit the fabric of this community that has become so frayed in the last few years. And all of which brings me back to this present moment, this very precious present moment to which we need to return again and again and again. Every time our minds go off worrying about the past or the future, return again to this moment, to all the things and beings in our lives for which we are grateful, for the greening grass and the blooming daffodils and the blossoming trees and the singing birds and the laughing children and the friendly eyes above the masks of those who are around us. We return to this place and these pews and these walls and this morning's organ music and our hymn singing. We return to our best selves, loving and caring and curious and compassionate and mindful and present with one another. We return to the work of being right here, right now. We return to what we can control, and we let go of what we can't. We do what we can do, and let go of what we cannot do. We invite, and we welcome, and we invite again. We reach out, and we bring in, and we reach out again. This is the work of the present moment, to be together in gratitude for our being here, in gratitude for those who are here with us, to practice celebrating what is without dwelling on what was or fretting too much about what may or may not come to be. And so I want to return before I close to the story that I shared earlier this morning, the story about that cracked pot, the story about the pot that felt such shame that it was only able to deliver half of the water that it once could. The shame that it no longer was what it was once. This shame that we, all of us, as individuals and collectively as a community, are no longer what we once were, that we can no longer deliver what we once could, as parents, as employees, as volunteers, as a community, all of it. The woundedness, the fatigue, the inward turning, the trauma that we've experienced has left us, in many cases, less able to do, to produce, to perform, to accomplish. Has left us, in many cases, less able to be who we wish we were. What were those opening words from this morning? Let go of what you're trying to become. Let go of the saint that you wish you were. Just be who you are. I imagine all of this about the cracked pot may feel as familiar to some of you as I know it feels often to me. But the story is meant to bring us back. It is meant to wake us up. It is meant to help us take another look at what, in fact, we can do and who, in fact, we are. We are doing things. We can still contribute. We can still nourish one another and those around us. We can still make the world around us more beautiful in some small ways each and every day. We can still be together and love one another. We can still give what we can. We can still be generous with one another and with ourselves and grateful for all that we have. So may it continue to be as we practice being in the present, in the moment, in the next moment, in the next moment, and again in the next moment. Now let us join in singing our closing hymn, which is number 86 in the gray hymnal. The words are also printed in your order of service. Blessed Spirit of my life, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as you are able. Now I'd like to invite Doug Mutter from the transition team to come forward and share a heritage moment with you, and thank you all.
Hi, is this on? Yeah. I'm Doug Mutter. These last several weeks, you've been hearing two fairly different kinds of moments in services. The transition team has been presenting heritage moments that explore some aspect of our shared history. The point is to get us talking about what First Parish has been over the years, about what we hope to be going forward, and to set up next year's conversations about what kind of minister we want to call. Independently, the Stewardship Committee has been presenting stewardship moments, where members of the congregation talk about what the church means to them and why they hope you'll pledge a lot of money. Now, behind the scenes, the two committees have been negotiating about who gets which Sunday. I'm on the transition team, and I'm also a recent alum of the Stewardship Committee. And so today I am here to do a stewardship heritage moment. Which makes sense when you think about it, because all through its history, First Parish has had to raise money. And over the years, lots and lots of you have been involved in that effort in one way or another. Maybe you've done a stewardship moment. I did kind of an odd one in 2012. I cautioned you about the dangers of belonging to a church that encourages you to think more about what you can give to the world rather than what you can take from it. If you hang around First Parish long enough, I warned, you may find yourself doing things that make no sense materialistically, like writing a political blog that has no revenue stream. Your first step down that slippery slope might be as simple as filling out your pledge card, so you want to be very careful how you do that. The larger history of stewardship at First Parish is full of stuff we either can't or don't want to do anymore. If you were at the trivia contest I emceed 3 years ago, you may remember how we paid our first minister in 1730, partly in money and partly in firewood. But today, no one will ask you to support the church by chopping wood for Wendy or Annie. We can't collect tax money anymore, like we did until disestablishment in 1833. We no longer sell the best pews to the biggest donors. And Universalism won't even let us raise money by threatening people with hellfire. So with all those avenues blocked, since 1920, we've run an annual pledge drive. That was another trivia question. And we've done it in a variety of ways over the years. When the church was smaller and more intimate, we did home visits. A canvasser would knock on your door and check in with you about how your relationship with First Parish had been going this year, before asking you what you wanted to pledge. I saw the tail end of that process in the 1990s. One year I was canvassed by Julie Turner. Another year I got to visit the Pulliams. But as we got bigger and didn't know each other as well, home visits became less comfortable. So we started sending pledge cards in the mail. And the challenge ever since has been to get everyone's attention, which is why we do stewardship moments and hold trivia questions. Trivia contests. Some years Stewardship has organized a talent show or a set of funny skits about First Parish. One year, one of those jokes was about me. In a game show skit, contestants were asked which of these actually happened at First Parish. The 4 options were completely ridiculous events that were obviously made up, including Doug Mutter told a children's story about decapitations during the French Revolution. And that, of course, was the real one. They had the tape. It got a big laugh. You should never forget that everything you say up here is recorded. So that's my stewardship stories at First Parish, but lots and lots of you have your own stories to tell. Maybe you have been a home visitor, or hosted a cottage meeting, or made phone calls, or performed in a show, or helped out at an annual dinner, or participated in some fundraising event like yesterday's concert, or the auction, or the plant fair, or the haunted house. Quite likely, what you did pushed you out of your comfort zone, because most of us don't enjoy asking for money or being asked for money. So why do we keep doing it again and again, year after year? Because we all know that raising money is necessary. And we love this place, and keeping the doors open is worth being a little bit uncomfortable now and then. In the breakout rooms after the service, we'll be asking you to reminisce about your experiences, good and bad, with First Parish's attempts to raise money. What stands out in your memory? What worked? What was a waste of time? And what would you like to see us do in the future?
Thank you for that, Doug. And again, if you are on Zoom and you want to participate in one of these breakout rooms, you're going to be put into a room. If you want to stay and have general conversation with others in the main Zoom room, you can do that as well. But there will be transition team facilitators for each of those groups, and we have some transition team facilitators here as well who can lead you in conversation about the questions that Doug asked. For now, may we go forth from this place thankful for the life that sustains and renews us. May we go forth to the grace that surrounds and surprises us. May we go forth from this place with openness and with thanksgiving. Go in peace and return again in love. Amen.